All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be back for another gathering with the one and only Lewis, and of course, the one and only Brandon from Expanding Reality. Brandon's camera's not working today, unfortunately, so we're just going to be hearing him instead of both seeing and hearing him. So, with that said, Lewis, brother, the floor is yours. How are you today? And I'm very excited to see what you have in store for us.
Yeah, man, I'm blessed to be here. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Dave. Um, it's been a weird one. We've scheduled this so many times, and for oh my god, for so many reasons that it's not happened. Something's been working against us.
That's why I
I
asked
think
you,
it.
what is this presentation
Yeah,
about, dude? There's some dark energy behind something, some voodoo shit not wanting
yeah.
this to happen. And then here we are doing this on Mercury in retrograde, by the way, the second day of it with my camera not working. So, all right, here we are. Lewis, what do you got for us, dude?
Let's see, man. Let's see. Right. Can we all see this?
Fuck yes.
Yes, yeah.
And just so you can't see my notes, yeah.
No, you're good to go. It's clean.
No,
Looks great.
No, can't see.
for some reason I can't move it. Anyway, right. Let's get going. Today, we'll obviously be discussing the film Pinocchio and analysing it. This will be a much shorter analysis, but there will still be deep lessons in which you can garner despite the length of this short film and of my short analysis. This won't touch on anything specifically esoteric or occult, although we do delve into some dark perspectives. Now, I will warn you in advance, this may be a heavy one for some of you. This will mainly be a video in which you can garner meaning and lessons from an otherwise family-friendly film. Viewer discussion is advised for those with children, and I'd probably recommend headphones if you're playing it at work or if you're around children, because we do go into some dark topics. So, a common theme within archetypal stories is the motif of leaving home. The journey begins when you step outside of your home. Now, home is the home being the symbol of comfort and familiarity. Often, the reason for leaving home is some sort of crisis that means they are forced to re-examine their lives, forced to look at their position in the world, their personal philosophies, and whether those personal philosophies are worth fighting for. All this happens usually because of a crisis, i.e. evil. Without the evil, you never would have left home. And if you never would have left home, you would never have the journey. The journey being the necessary element in your awakening, your transcendence, and therefore your evolution. Lastly, if you never had the journey, you would not have found yourself. Whether or not evil is a force that is simply designed as a way for us to find ourselves by overcoming hardships, which then allow us to evolve, or whether it is a force completely unto itself is neither here nor there. The fact that you can use a diamond as a hammer does not lessen the value of a diamond unless you're trying to pawn it. The first character we introduced to at the start of the film is, of course, Jiminy Cricket. Jiminy is Pinocchio's conscience. At the beginning of the film, Jiminy is simply a homeless bug. His clothes have torn and he's dishevelled. This represents that he is without a purpose, he is without a home, a mission, and is therefore homeless. After this, Geppetto, the father on the left-hand side, dances with a puppet that will soon transform into the character we know as Pinocchio. He shows Pinocchio to Figaro the cat and to Cleo the fish. They all go to bed, and Geppetto makes a wish that Pinocchio will become a real boy. To me, Geppetto represents two things mainly. He represents the past, and we'll be getting to why this is a bit later on. But secondly, most importantly, he is the potential of Pinocchio's greatest self, or a real boy. But he's much better than that. He's a real man. Not only is he brave, truthful, and unselfish, which encapsulates what it is to be a real boy, but he is loving, protective, and nurturing. He is a genuinely accomplished spiritual man, whether he realizes it or not. This is because he can enjoy life like a child does, in the purest way possible, while still being able to protect those he loves at a moment's notice. And we see this when he goes immediately to save Pinocchio when he goes missing. And of course, the picture on the left, which shows him with a gun. And in that scene, he's quite scared, but he goes nonetheless. And in my opinion, that's what it is to be a real man, and a real woman as well, of course. He's also the encapsulated essence of do no harm, but take no shit. He's generous, grateful, and has all the traits of someone that we would call enlightened. He's Pinocchio's potential, who he could be if he chooses. He's a child who is full of potential, and what he becomes is up to him. When he later gains autonomy from the strings of his father, Pinocchio hands the reins to many others due to this ignorance of the world. Now, don't worry, I won't be going to the trifecta again too much, but I was playing around with these ideas, and I thought that each of the characters could symbolize the importance to give equal attention to all parts of you. We've discussed this so many times. I'm not going to go too much into detail. And as you can see, when you watch the film, each character desires attention in their own unique way. Figaro, the cat, I believe it's called, likes, head scratches and all that. And then the fish likes attention in a different way. Although this would explain why the fish is very basic, doesn't talk, as we can see on the left, comparing with the lizard brain. While the cat is jealous, emotional, needy, and has its own habits, like a bed pattern, his own bed, and attachments to Geppetto, we can correlate this to the mammal brain. And lastly, it may be the answer why Geppetto is the only one who talks, expresses rational thought, alongside imagination and abstract thought. There's a Disney film, after all, where a fairy appears, turns a puppet into a talking boy, has a talking fox, etc. I don't fully believe the connections that I've made. Just wanted to throw something out there, something that I noted. From the shining star, we are then introduced to the blue fairy, who may symbolize Mother Nature. She's dressed all in blue. Now, the color of the blue is the color of the sky, color of the ocean, and this furthers the idea that she is Mother Nature, as she's literally in all things, from the heavens to the furthest depths of the sea. She comes from the shining star. Now, what do we say? She came out of the blue. She awakens Pinocchio by giving him access to the five senses and consciousness. However, if he wants to become a real boy, he must fulfill his father's wish. He must prove himself to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. Notice when the blue fairy turns Jiminy into the conscious of Pinocchio, she aims her wand at the crown of the head. We can then see a vortex, an implosion until the transformation has taken place. I'm sure both Dave and Brandon's viewers know what this means. I'm not going to go too much into detail. After we see the wave-like circle representing the completeness, now that he has purpose, on the bottom right. When he finds that his purpose was Pinocchio's conscience, his clothes are rich, which perhaps speaks to how rich the experience is of having purpose. Now, the conscience will bug you when you ignore it, and this is why Jiminy is represented as a bug. Jiminy then attempts to explain how to become a real boy to Pinocchio. However, he fails to get Pinocchio to understand because Pinocchio has just woken up. He's new to the world and he has no experience. He has nothing to relate to, therefore, he has no way of relating the words of Jiminy to then being able to understand them. Why? Because he has no experience. You will discover, firsthand I hope, that life is just that, an experience. This is why we have duality and why duality is so important. How can we hope to learn that which we haven't been through? How can you know red if you're colorblind? How can you know the touch of a woman if you stay a virgin? How can you know what evil is if all in life is good? Everything exists in a state that is relational with something else, and this is how we characterize things. We know what hot is because we know what cold is. We know what pain is because we know what joy is. Just like the ending in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy nor Pinocchio couldn't just be told, they had to experience it. And we call this experience life. Pinocchio is a child, and when you are young, you are malleable and easily led. You have no mind, you're a puppet that is controlled by your parents or caregivers. In this instance, we see Geppetto is a kind-natured man, but this isn't always the case with parents. What would the puppet do if a less scrupulous person was to have pulled their strings? Would that puppet then grow up in size, but still have the invisible strings attached to them, and the lessons ingrained from the pulls of the strings in their minds? When you come across someone rude or racist or stupid or any of the other things that you dislike, empathize with them for a second. You started off pretty much exactly the same as this person. You were both puppets whose strings were being pulled. Now your parents may have been nice people, being loving to you, and not turned the once blank state that you were into chaotic darkness. How about the other puppets though? Or even your parents, for instance? Maybe they had parents who didn't have a clue, didn't know because they too weren't taught the right way, or at least a better way. Hurt people hurt people. And sometimes it's important to realize that there are strings still being, that their strings are still being pulled by forces that they haven't yet dealt with, yet that they know is there. They haven't cut their ties with these forces, and as such are still being led by the same string pulls they've always known. They may not even be aware it's happening. If this happens to you, try simply to observe and know that that could have been you, and try to make yourself the best version of yourself that day by realizing what they do and what they say isn't about you. It's about them, as we know the world is a reflection of ourselves. We can see the best or the worst in others, depending on what we are looking at. Geppetto then discovers that his dream has come true as he talks to Pinocchio and they dance together. Just going to take a drink for a second. So, curious Pinocchio then touches the candle and lights his hand on the fire. Remember, everything is new to him and he isn't yet aware of the dangers of the world. He says, "Look, pretty," speaking to how we must be cautious of learning things just because they appear to be pleasant. We can, of course, relate this in our own lives when we were taught not to take candy from strangers. It is a lesson to be wary of things that look good because they can have dangers and hidden consequences that we may be unaware of. We can also apply this to my slide on Peter Pan, if you remember that, as he receives the bomb within the present box. As Pinocchio is on his way to school, ironically named Honest John shows up with Gideon, I believe is a cat. He's a fox, and what is it we say again? As crafty as a fox. Pinocchio is naive and easily led and suggestible, as he has no experience of the world, nor the types of people in it. He doesn't know good from bad, dangerous from safe, and we saw this when he lit his finger on the fire. Disturbingly, as Honest John explains how show business works, he says, "That physique," and then taps Pinocchio's ass with the cane, which you can obviously extrapolate the seedy meaning behind that, because after all it is Disney. As Honest John takes Pinocchio along, his conscience catches up with him and attempts to teach Pinocchio about the dangers of temptation in whatever form it takes. Pinocchio ignores the advice from his conscience and follows John and Gideon where he's sold to Stromboli, which is the puppeteer, I believe the name is. Obviously, this is child trafficking, child selling 101. Pinocchio then joins Stromboli in his puppet show, and what we can glean from this is how having the spotlight on you isn't always a good thing. If you're trying to gain access through an easy vehicle, You can only get there without your conscience. Speaking to the dangers of Hollywood, the music industry, the entertainment industry, and all that entails. If you don't know what I'm referring to, it's that many child stars are groomed, then they are sexually and mentally abused, and this is why we have so many child actors having breakdowns. Just going to list a few: Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, Demi Lovato, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, Amanda Bynes. Some child stars also have handlers who use hypnotism, torture, and sexual abuse to control these stars and keep them controlled. Among more disturbing things than that still, which I'm not going to go into. Pinocchio then reports to have no strings, as in no strings attached, no catch. Whereas we all know that he's being used, literally and metaphorically, as a puppet for the will of the handler that now controls him. The handler, in this case Stromboli, sexualizes the act and makes Pinocchio comfortable around the sexualization of things, i.e. the puppets, i.e. himself. He's introduced to wealth, fame, and popularity because of the acting. Pinocchio doesn't even realize that he's in danger when he's in danger because of him being a child and being new to the world and having no experience. Stromboli slams a large knife down towards him, and Pinocchio doesn't even flinch. He's childish, naive to the dangers that are out there in the world. Stromboli takes him away from his parents and from his home, and this is what they'll do, speaking to Hollywood, the entertainment industry, music industry, all that. They isolate you, and they use you for one purpose, and when you grow too old, they'll cut you loose, literally in some cases. Stromboli says, you will make lots of money for me, and when you're growing too old, you will make good firewood. I won't go too deep into what this means, but essentially what he's saying is that I will cut you up and use you, and I don't think I need to go on. Pinocchio was tempted by fame, fortune, and pretty women, and as such, he saw what he thought to be a golden opportunity. He ignored his conscience and gave into temptation in the form of fame, fortune, and attractive sexualized women, the puppets in this case, as he was a puppet also. Now that he's left home and is now a puppet to be used, he calls out for his conscience to save him. It's too late. What he's done has been done. Because it listened to his conscience, his higher self, in the form of his father or the Blue Fairy, he strayed from the path. This meant that he exposed himself to the dangers of the world. By leaving the path, he was subject to the will of the entropic and evil forces of the world. We also see this when Geppetto leaves the house in search for Pinocchio. Cages, as we can see in the top left, are also used in MK Ultra and Monarch programming. He's saved by the Blue Fairy, Mother Nature, who gives him another chance at redeeming himself to become a real boy. We then see Honest John meet the coachman. Now the coachman, seen in red here, represents royalty, the elite, and of course, as we spoke about many times, danger. We can substantiate this by his wealth, his dress, his posh accent, and the fact that he tells them that there won't be any trouble or risk, indicating that he controls the law, which is obviously the police. There is bad, and then there is evil. The fox and the cat Gideon are bad, but the coachman, in my opinion, is evil. We can see this through their reaction to the coachman's plan at taking them to Pleasure Island, the children that is. Honest John has no issue with murder, as we can see in the bottom left by his slice the neck movement, but is visibly seen sweating in the middle right, when the coachman tells him his plans. Now, what's the one thing that would make someone who is comfortable with child trafficking, scamming, robbing, and murder, sweat buckets, paedophilia, and possibly even some more nefarious, let's say, activities? Pleasure Island is obviously akin to Epstein's Island, and islands that are known to do that sort of thing. He says that he's collecting stupid little boys, the ones that play hooky from school, referring to poor children and misbehaved children. They're usually one and the same, but not always. If they never go to school, We can link this to troubled misfits and children with no ID who don't go through the system. Children that are like born into satanic rings and stuff who obviously aren't registered. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but there's no record of them, so who is to miss them and know that they have gone? He says that they never come back as boys, perhaps speaking to how when children are abused, they are no longer children. Due to the trauma, they have grown up, and for anyone that has had a rough upbringing, not necessarily sexual abuse, but just, let's say, a dark upbringing, you will know firsthand that you are forced to grow up very quickly at an early age, thereby losing your childhood and no longer being a boy/girl. We then see Honest John examining Pinocchio in order to convince him to go to Pleasure Island. He then kidnaps him while singing and gives him over to the coachman, who takes him alongside a carriage full of other children, and then onto a boat where they travel to a secret part of Pleasure Island through the underground cave opening. I don't really need to say any more about the underground caves on private remote islands. Pleasure Island is, of course, referring to the pleasure you'll get at the island, but not for the boys, you understand. The pleasure is for the visitors. However, not only is it that, it's also symbolic of the childish desire to have fun, to play and holiday, no commitments, i.e. no work. They then get to Pleasure Island, where they are presented with several rides and different things like that to amuse them and win them over. There is an attraction, one attraction where you can pick a fight, and another one where you can smoke as much as you like. This is another indicator that perhaps they are poor boys or orphans in adoption homes, as a common stereotype for someone who is poor is that they are rough and smoke at an early age, at least in working class Great Britain it is. I'm not sure what it's like in American places like that. Being bad is a lot of fun. He gets to mess around without a care in the world, and this is because he has no conscience alongside him. Jiminy is lost in the crowd and the noise, speaking to how we shouldn't always follow the crowd and lose our connection to what's right and what's wrong, regardless if everyone else around us is doing the same thing. We also hear the announcer say that everything is free, but of course this is a lie because everything has a price. The coachman's assistant then are told to lock the gates. The coachman's assistant are the figures in black, all black. The coachman's assistant lock the gates. So there is no escape for the boys, and Pinocchio then goes and plays pool in the pub with Lampwick, who we'll see on the left-hand side in just a second. Pinocchio and Lampwick smoke, gamble, and drink beer, and the pub that they are playing in is in the shape of an 8-ball, signifying the future, hence the magic 8 balls that tell the future. They are living recklessly, and without purpose. They are stagnant and pleasure-seeking, hence Pleasure Island. Pleasure Island, of course, isn't as straightforward as it always seems, though. You don't pay for things up front, but it comes later in unexpected ways. It's like Peterson says, you have to make a sacrifice, but what you sacrifice is up to you. When Pinocchio reaches and takes a big drag of the cigar, he reaches a certain level of the cigar and it goes purple. This is meaning that we can only fuck around for so long before it comes to bite you in the ass, basically. Bad company gets you a bad life, and acting like that turns you into a donkey, aka an ass. We then see that the children are now being turned into donkeys. Now he wants them to be without a voice, and a voice is the ability to speak out, and that's what he doesn't want, them speaking out. A voice means the ability to think and express. He only takes the boys as well because boys in the elite paedophilic circles are more forbidden fruit than a young girl because, as I said, lower this if you've got it loud. There are obviously the element of being gay that's sort of still taboo in, let's say, posher circles, elite circles, which adds to the depravity for them. I'm not saying gays are depraved, but whatever. As they can sodomize them, penetrate them anally, which is, of course, more depraved. As you can imagine, it would hurt more. So I'm going to say right now. Here we see the parallels of selling children oh my God, I can't speak. Selling children represented as donkeys to different companies. There is a Wayfair scandal, as we can see, a few years ago, and other companies that have also had similar correlations to like this. As we can see in the bottom right, they're being sold to different companies, Salt Mine, Circus, etc. Now, he unknowingly abandoned his father, his greatest possible self, to the forces of chaos and childish fun. And as such, if he wants to retrieve that part of him, he must venture deep to bring him back. He must take the leap of faith and enter uncharted waters. He goes underwater. He's then out of his depth, and he uses the rock, as you can see by the string, to stay grounded. Now, when the whale comes at him, he discovers that he must lose the rock and go with the flow. You must become free and flowing to escape and conquer it, for if you remain rigid, it will roll right through you. The reason that Pinocchio must save his father from the belly of the whale is that the father is who he could be if he only pay attention and work on his relationship to the right things. As we know, the dark forces of this world are very useful if you're willing to learn what they have to teach you. He engages with these forces and as a result becomes somewhat of a victim to the force, although this is mostly due to the ignorance that he has of the world. There are lessons everywhere, and few are more powerful than the darkest moments of our lives, because the more painful, mentally and physically, a lesson, the more it stays with you, again, physically and mentally. If you like to speed, and one day you get into a car crash and have a few scars and broken bones, you literally carry that lesson around with you for the rest of your life. It has left an imprint, so to speak, or literally, in the case of a physical injury. Imagine you're a child, and your parents tell you to be careful of a hot pan. They tell you not to touch the pot. Oh, sorry, pot and pan. A hot pot. They teach you not to touch the pot because it will burn you. Well, as a child, as Pinocchio, you don't know what burn means. It's just a word to you. It means nothing because, again, you have no experience of it. So if you go ahead and touch the pot and burn yourself, you learn a lesson of what being burned is like, and as a result, you're more careful around things that are likely to give you the same effect. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go around and teach your kids by scolding them, but you can see the analogy. If you touch the pan and felt no pain, you wouldn't be careful, and therefore you would carry on burning yourself for the rest of your life, as the consequences of being burnt wouldn't be a deterrent. Now, obviously, we can burning can be seen as a metaphor for the word damage. We can replace it for the word damage. Now, things damage us all the time. Certain actions we take or don't take, certain thoughts we have or don't have. We can damage ourselves without even knowing of it. Over the long term, especially. Sure, we can't see the effects now, but they're there. They're ever present. You can go in days, and for some people, weeks, eating fast food and have no visible effect. Everything can seem fine, and to engage in that action, not fast food specifically, but any action that might be bad for your personal journey, seems okay because it feels good, because we sometimes undervalue the negative effect that things have on us over the long term. Pinocchio couldn't just be told by anyone, his conscience, the fairy, the Geppetto, what it is to be a real boy. He must go through the journey, and part of the journey, inevitably, is failure. And often part of failure is you coming into contact with some of the darker-oriented forces of the world. Without meeting Honest John, Stromboli, and the coachman, he never would have learnt the lessons that resulted in him taking the leap of faith to face his Goliath monster, which is a whale, to save his father. The lessons were harsh and painful, but these are the lessons that stick. Learning them in a book or in the otherwise safety of, let's say, intellectually understanding them simply isn't good enough for most people. Just like Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, Harry Potter, and every other film that I may discuss, the journey is the most necessary part, and the so-called villains are there to facilitate your growth. It's up to you, however, if you choose to become a victim, or if you take the leap of faith and go after that greatest, grandest version of yourself that lies within the abyssal belly of the whale. I'd just like to make a quick note of how Pinocchio gets in the belly of the whale of Maestro the whale, sorry. He rejoins Cleo, Figaro, and Geppetto, and after he learns the lessons from his experience, a common motif we will see again and again and again is that altogether you can create the change or effect that you want to within the world, speaking to, again, how you must use every part of you, but only after you have had the necessary journey for you to come to the realization of the true path that you want to take. And this is, of course, different for every person. What Pinocchio then does is essentially what we hear Dave speak about, is what we are doing right now. We are, and Pinocchio is, using a new perspective on old physics. Pinocchio takes the idea from his father about how the whale works and uses this new insight to think of a new way to go about escaping, a new perspective on old physics. You must set a fire in the belly of the beast. And what else must you do? You must smoke it out. Smoking something out, means to expose it for what it truly is and to bring it out from the darkness. With the joint effort from Pinocchio and his father, they then escape the stomach of the whale. However, when you do this, don't hope that you won't feel the results of it and the consequences of it. The whale, whatever whale you are facing, a metaphor for problem or demon, will come back at you 10 times as hard to try to stop the advancement or escape. It may even crumble your armor, or in this case damage your ship to it's nothing more than a few wooden planks on which you must use to escape or defeat the beast. And we can liken this to how at our lowest points we feel like all of our armor gone. We don't feel strong, we feel weak, we feel lonely perhaps, and it's sort of a metaphor to that in the very last moment when you feel like you just want to quit and that you're nothing, that's when you have a choice to go up or go down to hell. His father also represents the past, as I discussed earlier briefly. Geppetto tried all of the ways that he knows and needs the help of Pinocchio, meaning that you cannot complete the task you want to by remaining in just one spot, i.e. comfort, the past, or the future. You must live simultaneously between multiple modes of being to accomplish what you desire, especially if that desire is defeating a Goliath. I believe I briefly spoke about this in Harry Potter when we spoke about Fluffy and the meaning of time and stuff like that. To escape, you must find a crack in the rocks, a niche, a hole, and a crack in the armor of the enemy. When he finds this, he then has a choice: save himself or save himself and his father potentially. Because of his journey, he now realizes the importance of his father and how much he means to him. He has a choice between following his old ways of the easy path, which was being selfish, and he's already seen where that's gotten him. He's learned that following that road will only bring you more hardship, more danger, and will leave you with nothing but emptiness. So he takes a higher path. And when you watch the film, the scene on the left, it's actually an inverted slant. So a higher path. As we know, the higher path, the steeper that is. Again, it's the waters are steep. We'll see this. The more important the goal, the steeper the mountain, and to reach a peak, which is a goal, an achievement, or something worthy of the journey, there must be a steep incline before you reach the top. It is the peak, the best, and the highest point in which you are to succeed. But to get there, you must brave the inclined path, which is, of course, the hardest path, metaphorically and literally. As Geppetto then struggles to swim, Pinocchio, with one arm, holds Geppetto while swimming to the hole in the wall. As we can see in the middle, he has faced the beast, shown bravery, selflessness, and been truthful to his highest self. He is now ready to turn from the ass that he was into the courageous, real boy he has now earned the right to be. Mother Nature then awakens Pinocchio, and he joins Geppetto, Figaro, and Cleo in a celebration. It is a celebration of the transformation that Pinocchio has went through, and like Jesus, I'm not a Christian, by the way, it is a celebration of his resurrection and of the fact that Pinocchio is now a real boy. Ending notes. This film teaches us how important it is to accept responsibility for yourself and how beneficial the forces of evil can be in our lives. Once we set out on the path to save our father, it is up to us to jump. It is up to us to fight the beast for what we know to be right. Remember, whatever you're going through right now isn't necessarily to build you up to... Sorry, let me start that again. Remember, whatever you're going through right now is necessary to build you up to become a stronger and better version of yourself. If you want to become real, adopt responsibility for your shortcomings, stop taking the easy path, learn humility, selflessness, care for others and help others, be courageous and brave even when the whale stands in your path. For when you are true to yourself, nature will always find a way to show up and show you the opportunities to save yourself. Because after all, nature loves courage. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Wow.
That was fantastic.
Just
Thank you.
wow. Pinocchio's
I'm not-
dark, huh?
I'm not sure how to stop sharing, by the way. I apologize. Oh, here we
Oh,
go.
that's okay. I can,
How's
yeah.
that?
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. That was so well done. I don't even know what to say. That was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
just I mean, wow, that's it. You nailed it.
Thank you, man.
It's just holy shit. I didn't know it was that dark, but wow.
I didn't know it went that deep to be. I mean, it's funny you bring this up because I saw a couple of clips where there was someone on Rogan recently talking about certain parts of that clip, which specifically was the boys island part and all of that. And then I see now you present this at a whole other deeper layer and level, and it's like, holy crap. So yeah, it's like, wow.
Yeah. It's
I think it's amazing how good Disney used to be in showing us both the dark and the light, which is what Pinocchio is. You
Right.
know, as I explained, there's so much beautifulness there for you to take and integrate into your life, and so many archetypes for you to then become, you know, who you want to be and become real and all that. But then there's also the darker side.
Right. Exactly. Brandon, did you want to jump in at all, or?
I'm just like, it's just the way that you break these down in the metaphors, and then yeah, the opportunity for us to see it in a new light and to see that there is beauty to be gleaned from it. Just like all the things we talk about here, there's these inverse energies in all of this shit, and there's some dark shit in there as some cautionary tales, but also as as an insight of what may be going on, as not only an option of experience, but an option to eradicate through your sovereignty, which I think is a very important point to point out there. But then also, yeah, all the beauty in it and all the binding together, and this hero's journey that keeps repeating here and being pointed out is just, it's one of these archetypes that just, its constant reemergence is, you see the themes in your life. And so it's almost like as you're talking about this, Lewis, I'm just sitting here going, yeah, dude, like, just in a lot of deep ways, man, Pinocchio and your analysis of it more specifically really spoke to me today. So just thank you for that.
Yeah,
Well, you're
thank
welcome.
you so much. That was great.
Yeah, but what I try to do is when people are listening, I hope that they are using everything that I say and everything that's happening in the film as a metaphor for specifically what's going on in their lives. Like, when I say a whale, I mean a massive problem that seems, you know, too hard to overcome. and want to say
All of your metaphors, I was
and-
right there with. I was reapplying.
Thank
And
you.
absolutely, brother. I'm saying that's what spoke to me.
Yeah.
You nailed it with your intent received, brother. You absolutely nailed it.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Just so cool. You're just so great at this, man. And they just
I
keep
know,
getting
it's
better and
really-
better. I think this is
Thank
like
you.
the
Thank you,
seventh
guys.
one, the seventh
Very-
presentation.
I think so. A 6th or 7th, right?
Well, because we need a couple of 2-parters, but I've got this labeled as Lewis 7. So this is 7, dude. And wow.
Sweet. That was well, Lewis. I want to thank you so much. And is there anything you want to say to the audience before we wrap this up?
Thank you for listening. And I'm sorry about my speech. I'm not the best speaker, but
Dude,
No,
as
you
we
did
as we
great.
go
No,
on,
no,
I'll work for that.
you did great. You did great.
no apology needed, brother. This whole getting even just this conversation has been wild, but it did, again, because of your message, happen at divine timingly, man, to speak really, really volumes to me, dude. So maybe this is all for me. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it really spoke to me now, and I don't know that it would have when we planned this 5 times ago. So just everything about it, the impact you're making here, man, just thank you, truly.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. And we will catch everyone very, very soon. So thank you guys so much.
Love y'all.